How did our family of 6 do living in our RV for 7 weeks? Find out in today's episode of The Catholic Money Show.
Seven weeks
7
in the
weeks.
RV.
In about 120 square feet. Our family of 6 lived. We do have 2 dogs, and I'll just say it at the beginning. We didn't take them.
Thankfully.
It just would have been too much.
Way too much.
To add a Labrador Retriever and a Golden Retriever into that space as well.
Yes. It was like
they were happier, we were happier.
In one of those fake apartments at IKEA. You know, it's like, here, you can have a real life in 80 square feet. But it wasn't as cool or hip.
Or organized.
No.
I'm type B.
But it was real. And we survived.
This is the tell-all episode. And we're going to share some of the lessons that we learned about ourselves, our family, in general, just about some personal finance things in those 7 weeks.
You can't live in an RV for 7 weeks and not learn something about yourself.
Or a lot about yourself. But why don't we just first, before we dive into the lessons learned,
Sure.
talk about why we even did this.
Oh,
because
sure.
we have discussed RVs in some form or fashion for years on the podcast. If many of you don't know, we're huge fans of camping, of RV travel. We've taken many trips. We used to own an RV, and one of the points is talking about that. It was called the Wallet Winnebago. It was a vintage 1993 Class A RV.
Vintage is very generous.
Vintage for
Old.
a crapper on
Code
wheels.
word for old.
We renovated it. Anyway, we traveled for a couple of years in that, and then we, this summer, purchased a much newer, a 2018 Class C, still drivable RV, and that is what we took on this trip. This was not necessarily a pleasure trip. In the past, we've gone to national parks, or we drove south for the winter. Anyway, this trip was much more of a different kind of variety. And what was the point of it?
Yeah, my dad has cancer, or terminal cancer. And so we were going out there to spend a little over a month with him and my mom. Get out there, make some memories, spend some time while there's still good times to be had and to be spent. That's what we did. And it worked out.
Yeah, we started planning it.
Very happy that we did it.
I think the first initial idea we found out about your dad's diagnosis last Thanksgiving. And I want to say, so then James, our youngest son, he came to us through adoption in March. We flew out and visited in April. And then you went on a special trip with your parents to the Cubs game. And when we got back from that trip, it was awesome that they got to meet James, but it was just this realization that, oh no, like we might not have a ton of memories between them and James if we don't intentionally create an opportunity. And so that's when we had discussed, like late April, early May, hey, would you guys be open to this? Us moving our crew nearby for several weeks to spend time. And we kind of looked at the calendar, and we just had a gut feeling that the window we picked was going to be the right time. The window. Mm-hmm. Not knowing if it was going to be, but it's just kind of how obligations were ending, things were freed up. Of course, there were certain things we weren't going to be able to do. We typically would have, but it looked like this pocket of time was the right time. And now in hindsight, we know it really was the right time.
Yes.
The exact right time.
We really got the time right on that tail end of kind of the good days.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is perfect timing. It was a very good trip. I'm so happy we did it.
Yeah, and since we actually have come home, just a very minor update, but your dad is now switched more into palliative care just because things have continued to advance. So it was a really beautiful time, although there were he was experiencing more pain the longer we were there. Mm-hmm. So we were seeing that good time begin to decline a bit. But we got to be there, and that we got to shoulder that burden a little bit with them. All right, so that kind of explains what we were doing. So it was different than if we were just going to go on
A
vacation for 7 weeks. That would look very different from what we actually did. And the place we ended up going was amazing. The campground that we stayed at was fantastic. It really couldn't have been a better pick. I'm so happy that we went there. If anybody is out in the East Coast, it was called Campground Island in Dover, Pennsylvania. And I just can't say enough good things about it. We're a homeschooling family. A homeschooling family is actually part owners of it. And they even had their homeschool co-op meet there once a week. And there were domesticated bunnies all over the island. And there was a rec room with a bunch of art supplies and fun games like foosball and pool and hockey. There was a creek where our kids could get in and play. It was only ankle deep sometimes. Sometimes there were a little more rain, maybe like almost up to their knee, and they could get in a little inner tube and float down. So it was really a really great home base for us while we were out there spending a lot of time with your parents. Yeah. All right, let's get into the lessons.
So we were out there. So we took, I don't know, 4 days or so to get out there. Stayed at that campground for
over a month,
6 weeks, and then moved on with the rest of our travels. So this is what we learned in that travel. A lot of it just staying in a place, but really a lot of it just living in an RV for 7 weeks, your whole family.
And we're going to start with some of the less serious lessons, and we'll get into the more serious ones as we go on. But the first one, and I wrote them down, and I'm going to be more sharing them with you.
Great.
And you'll have reactions if you agree with these.
Okay.
All right. I still need things clean, even in a tiny space with a fraction of the items. And I still feel like I need to throw away half my house.
Yes.
That exists in our 3,000 square foot home that we have. That's 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. I constantly want to throw away half the house and am constantly cleaning and tidying. And I did the exact same thing in 120 square feet. In some ways, less items need to be out to feel the same messiness level.
Interesting.
As a house, like it takes a couple days here to get to that critical point. It takes less time in an RV. In fact, but
it's interesting because you've always thought, because we had talked about taking a big trip or whatever for
like
a long
year-long
time.
RV trip.
So once it'll take 15 minutes and the whole place is clean. But I don't know if we've ever thought about, and it only takes 10 minutes to make it feel terrible and to mess it all up.
And it got to the point where, I felt so cluttered in on by just a few things being left out that I was paying the children $2 a day, one after lunch, one after dinner, if they help me get the entire RV back to beauty base 0. And I don't know if anybody's read The Hunger Games. We call it beauty base 0. If you've read The Hunger Games, where they got doctor up Katniss to get all her scars removed, everything back to normal. I just really needed the RV to be restored twice a day after meals, because it just... prepping meals, having meals, and then other just general things getting laid out, that was the point every day where it just felt like chaos, and I was willing to pay. And sometimes our kids wanted to earn that money. Some did more than others. And then other kids just didn't care. They didn't want to earn the money, and they didn't participate. Yeah. And that was fine. Of course, there were certain things they just had to do as part of being in our family. But those were the paid chores that I was incentivizing in the rig. And they quickly caught on that if they earned that money, the campground we were at on the weekends would have an open ice cream shop.
An ice cream shop. Yeah.
And they could pool their money together and actually buy ice cream for the movie nights or whatever. And so I was incentivizing things that I needed to be done, but also that came with rewards for them. But it's a lie that we tell ourselves, or that I was telling myself, that if we just had less stuff, or if we had less spaces to put it, if it was tinier, it could be easier to organize. If there was just less, nobody would make a mess. It's just not true. It's a lie. I am a fairly tidy person, and everybody else in my family is a slob. That's the part that I'm not getting away from here. So it doesn't matter how big my space is.
The wrong family with you. It
doesn't matter how small my space is. It is just always going to be part of my unique sanctification process is that things are going to be messier and more cluttered than I would ever want, but that is ultimately okay because it's not a moral issue.
Speaking of less stuff, I found out that having less stuff was okay. I think between the two of us, I am more stuff oriented.
Absolutely true.
I like things. And in the RV, you can't bring a lot with you.
It's true.
I had
You have to limit it.
maybe a week of clothes. I wore the same thing to Mass every week.
Did you really? I didn't notice.
I may have changed a shirt once. But yes. See, nobody notices.
Nobody noticed, even those closest to you. But I'm also not a detail person.
And so I had this week, like a week of clothes about. I just wore them over. It wasn't a big deal. It was easier, actually, because I didn't have to think of all the different clothes I could wear. I just had less choices. So it was easier to pick. We had less options of toys for the kids. We had less options of movies to watch, all sorts of less
dishes, less
options.
Books to read.
Made it easier.
Yeah, it really did. Although, in my classic, I didn't bring enough clothes.
Which is not your classic.
Well, no, it's not my classic. I overpack. I usually overpack. But I didn't want to overpack on this. Now, I packed enough clothes in theory, but I brought the wrong kind of clothes.
Yes.
So that was the problem. Biz Cash was not the right wardrobe for the campground. Needed a lot more T-shirts, jeans, jogging pants. That was reality, but I thought I just want to live in my everyday existence. I want to wear my button-up blouses and my blazers. Wore them zero.
Made no sense.
Zero amount of times did they get worn. Yeah. So I was not in touch with reality.
But yeah, it was just nice to, and then I think the first couple weeks, I should have brought that. I want to wear that thing or have that thing, whatever.
Yeah.
By the end,
didn't need it.
I don't remember.
No.
When we finally got home, I was like, oh, there's this thing and that shirt. It was.
Yeah, it made us realize I really could go throw away half the house now. Look out.
We could do with less.
We could 100% do with less.
So that was certainly a lesson I learned.
Yeah. And I missed certain kitchen gadgets,
Sure.
but I even brought
You brought some that we never
some
used.
that we never used. Some we just really never got into. And that was a lesson for me of we really can do a month without certain things that I love in my kitchen at home. But we just don't need on the road. I'm not doing the type of cooking or the meals that I would do in a physical house on the road. Simplicity was what am I trying to say?
Name the game.
Name of the game. There we go. Was name of the game. And there just wasn't a desire to put a 5-course meal on the table at the campground. No. And there really wasn't an ability because of the limited space.
Oven was tiny.
The oven. If we did meals like that, we just brought all the ingredients to your parents' house and I cooked there. It was much more comfortable. And then they had certain things that I didn't have in the RV. And it was just a lot easier. Yes. Yeah, minimalism. We can survive with it.
Yes.
We can survive with less. All right. Speaking of other resources that were in low availability.
Oh, boy.
The next lesson is those things that we didn't think we could live without. We actually did okay for a season without them. So first one would be sleep. Yes. Our son James was, when we got onto this trip, almost 6 months old. And earlier in the summer, he had slept through the night for maybe a week.
He fooled us.
Then it's our fault, really. It's truly our fault because we went on an RV trip. Then we went to a speaking opera gig. And then we went to the Eucharistic Congress. Anyway, change and travel are the nemesis to a child's sleep schedule. And his in particular just took a little bit of a whomping. Yes. And I think at one point he was like getting up 8 or 9 times a night. And we couldn't just let him talk it out because at one point he was a talker. You remember those?
He
wasn't crying.
He would wake up and make a bunch of noise. Then I pick him up, I feed him, all that stuff. He's sleepy. I lay him down, and then he just lays there and goes,
like he's testing out his vocal cords.
He doesn't do it at any other point of the day, just when everyone's sleeping.
Yeah, for a half an hour. He would just sit there and talk to his binky. I don't know what it was. I heard him laugh in his bassinet at one point in the middle of the night. But it would wake up the girls, and then they were crabby the next day. Yeah, it just...
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, all right, yeah, the kid's going to talk a little bit, maybe as he's getting adjusted or whatever. You just let him do it.
Fusses for 2-3 minutes, and he's asleep. Not a big deal.
But when you're all sleeping in essentially the same room...
Yeah, you can't let it happen.
Yeah, he's waking... Now the whole family's up 5 times a night. That can't happen.
So his preferred method of going back to sleep became a bottle in his mouth. And we knew it was a sleep prop, but you know what? We had to do it, and that's just how we survived. And eventually we got him down to waking up maybe, 2 to 3 times a night, which is still really hard, but that's what we were able to get him to. But tell him about your watch.
Oh, so yeah, I have a Fitbit and wear that. It tracks the sleep and all that. And I don't look up
You're not constantly checking
data
your stats
all the time or whatever. But I got a notification that said, oh, we have a new, I don't know, sleep profile or something for you. And to make it cute, they
give you a name.
Give you an animal. So, you are the bear, and you sleep and you hibernate or whatever. You're dead to the world or something. I got the raccoon. And it said, you are the raccoon. Raccoons are active at night. And they stay up late and they're active all night. And I was like, oh, yeah.
You're a creature of the night.
That fits. Yeah, I'm getting up all the time, walking around with this kid. It was, less things, less sleep. Who needs it?
And I appreciated that, Jonathan. I can get up with James, but then one of the number one fastest way to give me a migraine is sleep deprivation. If I get less than 6 hours of sleep in any given night, I'm getting a migraine the next day, unless it's a miracle. And so you took one for the team there. I appreciate that.
Quite a few. Quite a few for the team.
All right. So we functioned without sleep, with less stuff in general, no privacy, even just individual alone time. I mean, that was tough. We had to get creative at figuring out that, because we have a couple of introverts in our family, me being one of them. And there were just occasions where I'm just tired of being around people. And I would have to either hole up in the back bedroom, or I just got in the van and would leave to go thrift shopping or grocery shopping, and I just needed to do it by myself. But making sure our kids had that time, they could go up in the loft over the cab, and I'd shut the curtain. They could read for a little bit. That was important too, to make sure everybody that needed that alone time found it, but you just had to get a little bit more creative because you can't spread out in the house. I survived without a bathtub.
Wow, look at you.
Baths are typically it's my go-to for just relaxation. But we did discover saunas, and I now have a kind of a new love for the dry sauna. It might even be more effective than the bathtub. Wow. Personally, the effects that I felt were stronger and more lasting. So maybe a sauna is in the future of our house. We'll see. But we got by with a whole lot less of everything.
Everything.
We didn't have a single date night. We never had babysitters. These were questions for me.
Yeah.
And they didn't come without a toll. So nobody mishear me.
Oh, yes.
These were stressful things. These were hard. But ultimately, we knew it was worth it for why we were on the trip, and that we were choosing this. And that if we were ever to do something more long-term, we would figure out a way to build in. If we were going to be on the road for a year or whatever, we would have to seriously consider what we would do to answer those questions, because a year of zero childcare or a year of never having time alone or no dates, that wouldn't work. But for a short term, 6-7 weeks, it was fine. Yeah. But then God bless my dad. As soon as we got back, we're going to take the girls so you guys can have a date night. And we watched a movie at home with the baby.
Nothing too fancy. Yeah.
Nothing too fancy. We cooked a nice meal, had some wine, watched a movie. James hung out with us, and he took the kids, but the big girls. Yeah. But it was really nice.
It was great
to reduce the capacity of people screaming and asking us questions and needing us. Okay. let's get into monthly expenses.
That's always a question.
This was a question
if
mark.
you are into any of the RV world, there's always posts, people asking in the groups, people making YouTube videos, whatever it is, always about how much does it cost to live in the RV? A lot of folks go to full-time living in an RV because of we're going to cut costs.
We need something cheaper.
Yeah, and this would usually be like, we're getting rid of the mortgage, all this. But is it any cheaper? And so, Amanda, of course, you're a little bit more in the numbers and can remember them longer than I can. So when we were getting ready for this, I asked, what about our monthly expenses? Was it more? Was it less? Was it the same? Were there surprises?
It was about the same. And if we were traveling, like for vacation.
Oh, yeah.
For vacation, life certainly would have been more expensive. Because when you're in vacation mode, you are doing a lot of more fun things. Every day you're going out to eat. There's just, not always, but there tends to be more of that type of thing.
Yeah.
Ours was much more of just regular life. But I think it was just about the same. A little over a month at the campground, so 5 weeks at the campground, was less than our monthly mortgage, but not too far off.
Yeah.
So essentially we paid 2 mortgages. Still had the house. We Airbnb'd our home, so that helped offset that cost. Groceries were pretty much the same.
Felt like there might have been a little bit more out there.
Yeah, it really was. East
But
Coast.
it was about the same.
Things were elevated, but I was a little more simple in my meals, so offset there.
True.
I was making less meals, and it was more just, here's some grapes as a side dish.
Yum, dinner.
Instead of making a side dish, I just threw a pile of grapes at people or carrots. The bunny rabbits loved carrots, by the way.
did.
We would have, I think there was a bunny rabbit they named Reese's because it was black and brown.
I don't know what it's
Anyway, it would come outside of our door and be on its hind legs begging for a carrot. It was adorable. It was so cute.
They were a bunny or a baby bunny.
Oh, it was adorable.
It was great.
But yeah, the monthly expenses weren't in doing a bunch of fall activities like going to pumpkin patch and things we would have normally done here, Husker party or whatever, but we were driving a lot. And so the gas for the RV, don't get me wrong, that
Gas
was
bill went
pricey.
up, yeah.
That was certainly outside the normal expenses, but then we drove a lot back and forth between your parents' house and just that expense. The heightened expenses of that were offset by us we weren't hosting. Usually when we're home, we're hosting.
Experiences in other places.
Yeah. So really it ended up being 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we ever did a life on the road, I would anticipate our particular type of style being about the same, probably being a wash. We would probably spend about as much as we normally do in our everyday life here.
All right.
Because where we aren't going to spend it on the school sports or the hosting, we would be spending it on doing fun things out and about. But for the people that think they're going to RV travel and save money, I really only think you can do it if you are essentially going to be stationary. You're not going to be traveling. You're not going to be guzzling up the gas at 9 miles per gallon. And you are just going to be doing your everyday existence life. You are not going to be doing any of the fun stuff. If that is how you're going to do it, you might save money.
Sure.
But really, I think it's really just it's comparable. So don't be fooled into thinking it's going to be this magically less expensive opportunity, because this leads me into the next one. RVs break.
Boy, do they ever.
Yeah, this does lead me into the next one. RVs break.
Yeah, we've got a huge list of things that need addressed in the RV.
But let's
And
mention...
this is a good reminder. A couple came up last night. I got to remember to write down.
Oh, good.
Or
yeah, you need to create the
not
punch
new
list.
things, but things I was like, oh, I didn't write that one.
Our RV almost burned down when we were gone.
Thankfully, on our trip, thankfully we weren't gone that day.
Whoa.
We almost were. And if we were gone, the RV might have been gone too.
It 100%. And we were hooked up to, it would have been horrible. It would have been absolutely terrible if
so
the
bad.
So let's just tell the story. So we were going to get up,
We were going to leave that day.
and I think we were going to go spend the entire day at your parents.
Yeah.
And it was still summer, so the air conditioning was running, a lot of things. But your dad ended up not feeling well, so we canceled some of those plans. We're just hanging out at the campground. It was a Saturday morning.
Yeah, Saturday.
And air conditioning's running. I microwave something, and then I want to go blow dry my hair. And I realized when I try to blow dry my hair that there's no more power. And then at that point, I realized it's starting to feel a little warmer in here. Wait a minute, I don't think we have power anymore. So that's when I went and got you.
Mm-hmm. And there's been that kind of weird smell this morning.
A weird smell, yeah. And then you finally come into the RV, and I traced it to like our bed area, and I had no idea why.
Under the bed in most RVs is where they place all of the electric kind of infrastructure. So if anything is going to catch on fire, it's right under where you sleep.
So you're going to go up in flames.
Maybe it's like a built, you're going to wake up fast because your feet are burning. I don't know. But yes, there's the piece of equipment that takes, when you plug in at the site, the AC, the alternating current, electricity, converting it, and it kind of just directs it to where it needs to go to then maybe, when you have that, you don't need the DC. Anyway, and this
inverter?
the power
man,
it wasn't, that switches it to DC, or that takes DC to AC. Anyway, this was just something, it just kind of routes. It doesn't do too much thinking, but it has to route the electricity. It knows if you're plugged in or not, the transfer switch. Anyway, there are some connections. So all the electricity runs through this thing.
And it is
Some of the wires, the connections that they used on it are just junky connections, which will come loose, especially if there's a lot of motion or vibration that you may experience, say,
earthquakes.
Driving an RV around. So that had happened to us, apparently.
And we've discovered on these forums that a lot of people, after they travel, before they even throw the air on or anything, they go tighten the connections, which that's a manufacturing defect.
But that's a good
smart
idea to make up for it, which we did not know. And we didn't know it until those connections got so hot, they melted. So we opened the thing, it was gone. A couple of them were just gone.
Yeah.
And then the insulation along the wires was gone, and then now those wires are starting to touch, and that's creating more shorts. It was real bad. We were, I don't know how far away
from a fire.
10 minutes, an hour, I don't know what, but it really would have turned into a fire and then caught everything else on fire. It could have been really bad. But thankfully it wasn't. But it was a Saturday, of course. So there's very limited options on getting it fixed and blah, blah, blah. That was a whole thing.
If anybody has seen that video that Dude Dad did on RVs, there's a phase where everything, it's like there's just repair after repair. And then they're always stepping back and going, that'll be about 1,000.
Yeah.
That'll be about 1,000. Everything, every repair in the RV. Yeah, I think it was about 1,000 to fix that, right?
No, it was 600.
But then there was something else, and there was
then the water heater wasn't working.
It was about 1,000, yeah. So even if your monthly expenses might be about the same or a little bit less, your RV is going to break more and need more repairs than a sticks and brick home. Hands down, 100%. So it really is 6 of one, half a dozen of another. And we preach all the time about the importance of an emergency fund.
Oh, you got to have that rainy day.
It is essential if you have an RV. Potentially beefed up just a pinch more than you usually do, because you're just going to need to access it.
Interesting.
More than you would for other types of emergencies. You can pretty much guarantee there's going to be a couple of RV emergencies. If you are using it a lot, you're going to have a few a year, compared to maybe a few a decade in a home.
Yeah, or if we were only going to go out for a 3-day weekend here and there, use it a bit over the summer, and that's it.
It would take years to get to that point.
When we were in it, day in, day out for almost 2 months, and driving it a fair bit too. Right. From Nebraska to Pennsylvania,
putting 4,000
Florida,
miles on it,
to Nebraska. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for things to break.
Yep.
And they certainly did.
They certainly did.
Yes.
Yeah, that emergency savings, again, was clutch. It saved the day. We eat our own dog food. So yeah, we've got that emergency savings. It allowed this event to just be a non-issue. We just paid for it. We moved on. We're just replenishing that money. It was no skin off our back. We weren't panicking. We weren't stressed. We weren't trying to figure out how we're going to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
It just got done, and we were able to do it immediately. We didn't have to wait. We didn't have to time it with a paycheck. And that is the piece that having emergency savings brings to you. And so, again, can't advocate for it enough.
Yes.
Yeah. So if your emergency savings is taking a hit, maybe with the economy in the last few years, again, this is your sign. If you've been waiting for a sign to get that hot poker and to prod you along and get this back into action and to replenish, and you've just been limping along, you're not maybe in debt, but you're not really rebuilding that emergency savings, take this as your moment to get guns blazing back into that.
I've got a lesson.
I think I just combined a few
that
phrases.
I learned.
What did you learn?
You're going to learn how to do stuff. So when you're new, right? We're not exactly new to RVs, but boy, I think they sure did change in 30 years. A lot more parts, a lot more things going on, more things to break.
Totally. Our last RV
Put
was
together a little
simpleton
bit differently.
compared to this one.
So there's a good fair number of things I just hadn't encountered on the old one. And so we had the guy come out to fix the thing that melted. And I watched it all go,
could have done that.
I think I could have done that. Or with the water heater thing, I was like, oh, I think I could do that. We took it in anyway because we had them double check the other guy's work.
I was still smelling that burning smell, panicked that we were going to go up in flames.
It's just...
I needed a second opinion, and we were good.
It was leftover smell.
That burning smell seeps into the wood,
all sorts of things.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be there for a bit.
But so it was like I was getting more familiar with this particular RV and its bits and pieces and the way it works. Like, yeah, I could do that. I could do that. So now I think when something else, if there's another break or something like that, I go, all right, let's give it a shot. I think I could do this. And I think that happens a lot in all areas of our life. So if it's with your money, it was like, man, I don't know, this budget thing, or you just got to do it a couple times. Maybe you got to watch somebody do it once. And then you can do it. You can gain some experience and you get to know what you're doing. Before you know it, you're the one doing it.
Yeah. And I think that we would have preferred you do it if, couple things. One, this particular RV, when we purchased it, was still under warranty.
Yes.
So why would John waste his time when we could just, the warranty covers somebody else doing the fix?
Yeah. So the difference now between, so we call the guy in, it's whatever, $700. We only pay 100 of it. Or I could buy the part myself for whatever, $150. Normally that's a way bigger gap, but because of the warranty, it's a $50 gap. And
because if you do the work, their warranty is not reimbursing you.
No, it's not.
No.
And if it would break in the future, well, it's still under warranty. It wouldn't be covered, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I would still be figuring it out on the
fly.
I'm going. So yeah, so the difference there wasn't big enough to need that. But in the future, when that thing runs out, I'll fix that for sure.
Sure. We were also on the road, and it was a week before we were going to go home.
It was the
so
week we were leaving.
Time was of the essence. And when you're in that situation, you just don't, it wasn't the right moment for John to learn a new skill. And if we were home or in another circumstance, we'd be all for John go ahead and trying to fix it and to figure it out. Because I think you're capable and 100%. More than capable, and you're smart.
Girl.
But it wasn't the right moment.
Yeah.
And we had the warranty. Okay, usually we advocate for not getting warranties, but I don't know what the original owner paid for that warranty.
Yeah.
I don't know. But because we now have that upfront experience of we're heavy RV users. If you are a heavy RV user, meaning you're really going to spend a couple of months in this thing a year, at least, I wonder.
Yeah, I have no idea how much it costs. For us, it was kind of like a bonus. It was like a cherry on top of buying the RV.
Yeah, we didn't actually pay for anything.
Yeah.
Transfer or any of that.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But that might be.
Okay. So let's talk about another financial thing. our first RV. There were many times on this trip when I thought, oh, this is just such a nice RV. I'm proud of it. Look how beautiful it is. I'm not semi-embarrassed pulling into the campground with my 30-year-old vintage RV that has cracks in the paint. And it was a humbling experience.
Mold at night.
Yeah, there's not an infestation of mice in the pipes or ants in the paint, and there's not moldy wood in the walls, all this stuff.
Windshield
it was just a
leak.
more solid RV. And there were times when I was tempted to think, I wish we would have just started with a newer, bigger, better RV. That temptation came up for me a couple of times. But then I would just mentally, I'm a melancholic, so I got to do my circles and go back. I came back to the same conclusion every time, that the first RV we bought really was the right RV, because we didn't really know if we loved RVing or not. It doesn't make sense to overinvest in a hobby that is not truly part of your identity and you don't even know if you love.
Yeah.
I see plenty of examples of that in different groups I'm in. People went and they got the $100,000 fifth wheel right out the gate. They RV'd minimally for a couple of months over a summer, and then they didn't like it much. And now they're upside down in their RV loan, and now they take this massive loss.
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense.
Sure. Or you're trying to get into, you think, oh, photography might be fun. You go out buy this $3,000 camera instead of the $300 camera.
Exactly. I really feel like if you are curious about RV life, that it is essential to get that first RV needs to be paid in cash and appropriate. An appropriate level of investment. It just needs to get you on the road. That's it. Now, we have plans for this particular rig that we purchased. It is going to be partly used by us, but also partly a rental and a source of income. So there's specific reasons we purchased this model with this mileage and at this new of a rig, if you will. But we wouldn't, this would have been an unwise decision and an unwise choice if it was several years ago when we first got into this.
Yeah. It was nice having a cheap old one. In some way, we never used it as much at once. We took some like 2 week, 3 week trips. The longest was, maybe
2.5 weeks.
But when things would break or things, it was just like,
we didn't care.
I don't know, I'll give it a shot. Because the whole thing was what, like $3,000? It was like crazy.
That's what it cost us. But then when it was totaled, we obviously got more than that.
Yeah. So like we got it for a song, and it was old. So it was just like,
we had nothing to lose on that.
I'll try it out.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. So that was actually a benefit of having something a little cheaper, a little older, but not as nice. Because, well, all right, yeah, sure. Let's give it a shot. Oh, yeah, we think the walls in the back are crap. I don't know. Let's
replace them.
Scrape them all down and redo the whole thing. And I don't know. Can't screw it up more than it already is. So it was helpful.
The reason you give the 16-year-old new driver the 20-year-old vehicle that great-grandpa isn't driving anymore. That's the ideal, right? Have we all heard the stories of the teenagers who get the brand new car with the bow on it and then they wreck it? It's just not ideal. You give them the car that nobody's going to be freaking out about if it gets a couple bumps and scrapes along the way. Yeah. Ideal. All right. So those are some of those big lessons. These last two, I feel, are a little bit weightier, a little bit more substantial, and worth pointing out.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. Okay, so this one, while we were on the trip, there were certainly elements that felt difficult and challenging. Certainly. But there were also moments where I just stopped and paused and I realized what exactly we were doing and what a privilege and a gift that it was that we were here. We're in our 30s. We've got 4 kids. We're living out on the East Coast in our RV. And we get to spend a significant amount of time making memories with your dad, who we don't know how much longer we have with. But we could do that, one, because of an internet connection. We could run our business from anywhere in the world, really. And we also homeschool our kids, and we had the ability to do that and to make that happen. And when we started our business way back in 2017, we'd been having discussions for years about the type of business we wanted to have, about a business that really freed us up and was a springboard to spend our time, the time that we were given by the Lord, on what mattered most and to protect the things that matter most. And we sacrificed a tremendous amount in the first several years of our business. I don't know if this would have been possible in those early years because we had to spend so much time on the business. And what do they usually say? You leave the 40 to work the 90 when you're an entrepreneur. It can be true in those early years, but it shouldn't stay true. And I will say this, I have seen many an entrepreneur have that stay true for the rest of their life. They actually just become a complete workaholic and it consumes them and they never take time off. And it's like the golden handcuffs. It straps them in. And now they talked about all this freedom, that all this revenue and income was supposed to help them have time to go do, but they never do it. They just constantly keep trying to grow this thing just for the sake of growth. And I can see where that temptation could happen, but I guess I want to commend us a little bit for just saying, having boundaries on our business and staying focused on what really matters most. Yeah, we could have stayed home and we could have gotten a couple of new products out or certainly ran different things a little more efficiently, but the business will come and go. It's a vehicle. It's just a vehicle. It's a means to an end. The end was the dignity of your father and his life and being with him and creating those memories and having our kids spend that time with him. That's what the business is supposed to do, to be the vehicle that allows those things to happen, not an end in itself. And sometimes you can get so in the weeds, but it was just, I would have those moments of, wow, we actually built something that's allowing the most important things to be protected. Thank you, God. Thank you for calling us to this. This was our vocation. We had vocation to marriage, but we had this vocation, this calling to become entrepreneurs. And I'm just so thankful that the Lord has led us in the way that we were able to experience this, where we certainly could have fallen into different avenues or ruts or temptations that would have made this not possible. He's been guiding and leading us, and I just felt such immense gratitude for that.
That's a real gift to have those moments where you can kind of stop and pause and just pull back your attention a little bit and see what's happening. And things like that, whatever it is, you can see, oh, I'm in one of those moments. I'm in this time where I am doing what I'm being called to do. I'm doing what
you're working towards.
This is what I hoped was going to happen is happening. And it's so easy to miss that.
Oh, so easy.
And to just let it pass you by and then you don't realize it. All this stuff this is the moment. You've planned the trip or whatever. You planned the meal and you've been working on it and you've been slaving in the kitchen. You've been cooking it and all this stuff. And then you don't stop back and just chew slowly and enjoy the thing. And when you can do that, that's the gift. You by.
Yes.
And it doesn't, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is. Like these moments are happening all the time. And I'm sure I'm probably missing them every day. But the times when I don't miss them, that's awesome. That's a gift and an opportunity to just be more thankful, to enter into prayer even, and to really help reveal yourself to yourself that this is the moment, this is when I'm alive, and let's get some more of it.
Yeah, not taking things for granted. And really, I found myself going back way before even the business, because had we never gotten intentional with our finances, had we never changed the trajectory we were on, truly, learned the skill of budgeting, of paying off the debt, of getting the savings in order, of figuring out how to morally invest for our future, how to talk about money in a safe and productive way as a married couple, this would not have happened too. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to be able to do things like this. You could, if you're even working a 9 to 5, you can still figure out a way to get your money to support the things that you feel called to do the most. There's always a way that you can figure some of that out. And I guess I want to encourage people, discern, what it is, the things that the Lord's calling you to do. And then whatever that is, figure out a way to reverse engineer your finances to be able to say yes to that. We've talked about this in other podcast episodes, that maximum fruitfulness. Our money is given to us for maximum fruitfulness as disciples in whatever the unique vocation is that the Lord's calling us to. That is the purpose of money and why it's given to us. Other people will have different answers for that, but as disciples of the Lord, that's our answer. And when I was able to slow down and see that in action, I was just, again, super grateful, super, super thankful. Again, that can happen with so many other resources in our life or in so many other gifts. I also had moments where I was just astonished that here we were with 4 kids in this cramped RV. On one side, I could have taken the bait and been, I'm so overwhelmed with these kids. But it was such a hard journey to get to this point that I reject that. Look at me. I'm getting overrun with kids. This is awesome. I love it. No time to myself. Everybody's freaking out. I love it. Because it was just so difficult to get here. And I don't ever want to take for granted the things that the Lord's gifting us. So there was a lot of that on this trip. Also just the nature of the trip. A lot of reflection on legacy, a lot of reflecting on life, a lot of reflecting on quality time and what is actually the most important things. So I think that also allowed for these lessons to pop up a little faster. But I think it's worth meditating on for all of us. You don't have to be in this exact circumstance to do a little bit of meditating on those things. All right, final thing. Cliche. Ain't no place like home.
There's no place like home.
Oh, it's called There's No Place Like Home, not Ain't No Place Like Home. I screwed that phrase up.
Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Place like home.
There's no place like home.
What did you do when we got home?
I almost cried.
You fell into my arms and started tearing up.
We got home. It was a long day of travel. It was late
long
at
days
night.
Of travel. 3 days
long
of travel.
Long days. It's the end of the day. It's late. Tired.
Exhausted. It had been a really good final day, though. Yes. Like, the kids were pretty much as good as they could have possibly been.
And what also helped is because we had Airbnb guests, the house was very clean. We didn't just leave it a mess.
No.
So we come home. It's clean. It's nice.
My parents had made the beds.
I had forgotten in some ways our house. I had forgotten.
It had been so long.
It was just like, it's just so nice. I love it here. It was incredible. I just walked around.
Cracked a beer, walked around with a giant grin on your face.
It was great.
It felt so good to be home. To the point where we've discussed going on a year-long or years-long trip. Yeah. And now I'm like, nah. We'll be gone for 2-3 weeks, hit Yosemite or whatever it is. Glacier, and then we're coming home. We're homebodies. We love home. We just felt immensely good to be home. Also, something else that I realized, home's not always just the 4 walls around you.
Yes.
Now, ours certainly has become special to us over the last 7 years, but it's the community as well. I staged crises to get my house tidied up. So after we got home and the house was perfect, we brought everything in the next day. And then everybody starts getting into boxes and getting at stuff. And now I've learned a lesson on how we're going to unpack better next time. This time it got crazy really fast.
Real crazy.
It was a disaster on every floor of this house, and I was panicking. So on Thursday or Friday, I staged a crisis and invited 40 people over for brunch after Mass on Sunday. A lot of them said yes. And so we had to get the house clean. It just forced the issue.
Yes.
I do things to force the issue. It creates some stress in the process, but I'd rather experience that and actually get to the end result than just let this thing drag for weeks and then nobody's happy. stage of the crisis, but then that it was another layer of experiencing that home, because I really feel like we've got like 50 to 70 families that are just dear friends of ours in Omaha that we share life with. We actually see them. We do things together. Yeah. We care about each other. We check in on each other. That is, it made me think of it. It's a Wonderful Life at the end with all the friends. It really is when you are rich in relationships, that is as rich as you possibly could be. Truly.
Yeah.
And especially when they're Christ-centered relationships. It's just such a gift. And so I love our home, but also I love the community that we get to live life in. And that when we traveled, I'm able to experience and hear about other people's communities, and they're good. But there's something really unique about Nebraska because it's mega Catholic, and there's a Catholic church literally every mile or two. And there's just something different about families here than there are other places. And we have friends that certainly have amazing communities elsewhere, but they're all really spread out and they don't get to live near like close proximity. There's something unique here about in Nebraska, like our parishes are built in neighborhoods, not just like on a street corner. And I would say that's a little bit more rare. And so it felt good. The day after we got home, our kids immediately ran over to their friends of ours who also homeschool from our parish.
Yeah, it was good.
And just making me realize that this place is home. And we spent the first couple of years in Omaha wanting to get out of Omaha. Yeah. But now I feel like it's solidly Homaha.
Oh, boy.
Homaha, the cheesiest phrase ever. But yeah, just super grateful to be home. Super grateful for the community that we have. And they were constantly checking in on us even while we were gone. Just what a gift.
Yeah. No, it's been really good.
Yeah. I think that's it. Those are the big lessons.
A lot of lessons. Again, maybe you don't have to go live in an RV for 7 months or 7 weeks. I said weeks. Oh boy.
What are you? Is this a prophecy?
I hope not. 7 weeks to learn some of these things. I hope we were able to tease out a couple of these lessons that you can easily throw into your own life. But if you've ever been on a trip like this or something kind of revelatory to you, we'd love to hear about it. You can reach out to us at email@walletwin.com or find us on social media.
At WalletWin.
Message us there. And if you like this episode or any of the other ones, please share it with some people that you know who might also like it too. That's how we grow the show, reach more people, help more people find financial peace and freedom and live their money in a Catholic way. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Until next time. Bye for now.